Hey everybody, welcome back to Jordan Lee Tarot. So I have three decks for today's reading. We have the Ostera deck, that is an oracle card deck. I did get this from Etsy. And then I have the True Love Oracle. So I am putting some bets on this being a love reading, but you can never be too sure. And then I have the Truth Seers Tarot. So I'm very excited. I felt called to do this reading earlier in the day. Normally it's dark out, and I do find that I can tap in really, really easily right before bed, like between 8 to 9:30. That's a really good time. But today it came through, read a little earlier. And if you've seen my earlier videos, they were kind of filmed earlier in the day. So it's just interesting to note at different times that different messages want to be delivered. I think that's really fascinating. So I am not sure what's going to come out of today's reading, but I trust that it is whatever needs to be heard by whoever hears it. So let's take a moment. I'm going to take that deep symbolic breath. And it puts me right where I need to be mentally to offer the clearest and most authentic reading. So what do we need to hear today? Perspective. Portal. Okay. Okay. This is a reading, at least initially, about mindset, mind shift, and beliefs. Watching my hair slide down the back of my head. I digress. I cut my hair very short because it's getting warmer and it just always makes my curls happy and bouncy, but my hair is not yet dry. So it just anyway, I digress. Okay, fun fact, the bald eagle was endangered for years. Many people knew this. And I actually heard it said at a public event that this one woman was almost like seeing them everywhere, to the point where they weren't this special event that they used to be to see. She's like, oh, they're everywhere now. And I'm thinking, well, isn't that just wonderful? I mean, we've gotten one of the endangered animals off of the list. Why are you kind of going, oh, well, I wanted that to be exclusionary? I thought that was a little funny. But the idea here is the perspective is that higher perspective where you see the full picture. Portal. This is pretty clear to me. And again, it's purple. Okay, not all the cards in this deck are purple, though the back of this deck is purple, but not every card itself is depicted with that purple color. The purple color is reminiscent of the seventh chakra. So that is that divine source energy connector color. This is talking about how different beliefs are portals to different worlds. Now, what I mean by that is that, did you ever see someone that was going through a hard time and they had a completely different spin on it than somebody else who was going through another hard time? It's not easy to compare people's situations, but just to acknowledge that, or even two people were in a car accident and one of them is healing and had this really profound experience from this, and the other person is spiraling and is having a really hard time. One incident, two different people, two different mindsets, two different universes between the ears. We all have our own unique universe between our ears. It's our mind, it's the way it works, right? So I always say, can you walk down a dark alleyway in your own mind? I can, but I've done a shit ton of shadow work and it is not easy. And even now, sometimes you go down one of those alleys and you go, ooh, gosh, okay, I guess I still have some cleanup work to do. But I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid to do it. And I know what that looks like. So this is talking about getting that higher perspective or changing your beliefs is a portal to an entirely different universe. I am seeing in my mind's eye, there was that movie, I think it was just called Parenthood, with Steve Martin and I think it was Diane Keaton, and they were both parents, and she was driving, he was in the passenger side, and they're looking out opposite windows. He's looking out his window, and the kids are, I guess they just got this information that she was pregnant and they were like in their 40s. Okay. They already had kids. They've already, it was like, oh my gosh, can we do this again? We're so much older. He's looking out the window. There's a kid screaming and crying and giving their parents a very difficult time. She's looking out the other side of the window and she's seeing a mother with her baby and they're just so happy. And so it was like they were having completely different experiences in that moment. She was on cloud nine, thinking, I get to be a mom again. I get to give birth again. Like this whole beautiful experience that I get to go through again. And he's like, holy shit, I have to raise young kids again and go through the whole thing. And he was not happy about it initially. So that's what I'm seeing here. Those differing perspectives are portals to entirely different universes, which also begs the question of like, what thoughts are you keeping in your head? Okay. What universe are you creating by the thoughts that you allow to be there? Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Okay. This may or may not be a love reading, but I am going to flow with the energy. Emotional freedom and abundance. So I think this is talking about that emotional freedom of picking and choosing what thoughts we allow in our mind can lead to a huge source of abundance in our life. What I look at here is that it's not just one kind of prosperity. It's not just stacks of gold coins. It is jewels and flowers and crystals and I don't know, there's all kinds of things in here. A glass goblet, overflowing with coins and pearls. And so this is not just one form of abundance, but multiple. And I think this also speaks of like the very layered, intricate, differing kind of experiences that we can collect over a lifetime and what that does in the mind, right? That sense of emotional freedom, because we've been through many different things, we've seen many different things. When you have more perspective, larger perspective, multiple people's perspective, it changes the conversation. It changes the way you think, and it leads you to a completely different life because of the thoughts that you're going to think. I think travel is one of the most important things. People have kind of coined it a luxury, and in a lot of regards, I understand that. But to see what people in a completely different part of the country are doing on a Tuesday is very important. It shows you what other life is available, right? You're living your life here in Iowa, in America. Okay, go to Japan in September and see what they're doing and what their weather's like. Especially here in the States, to go to Australia because, our spring is their fall, vice versa, right? Can you imagine how warm it is at Christmas time? It just that would it just wouldn't feel right. But I digress. The whole point is, you know, they're having a completely different experience in April than we are, and in September or October than we are here in the northern hemisphere of the United States. So, having all of those perspectives is powerful because it gives you emotional freedom and it gives you more awareness that you have a lot of choices to create diversity in your experience. So, I'm gonna maybe flesh out a story here. Spirit, what are we talking about with a story? What are we talking about with a story? What are we talking about with, okay. Okay, what are we talking about with that? Okay, whoa, whoa, so many things. Okay, goodness. So the first thing that jumped was the Seven of Cups. This is having a lot of different options, and this could be maybe you're deciding if you want to stay in the United States and live here anymore. There's a lot of people that are moving outside of the States because it is way more affordable to live in Spain, Portugal, Brazil, New Mexico. Like there are certain areas that are just really, really, and I don't know, is New Mexico part of the States? I'm so terrible at that stuff. Forgive me if New Mexico is part of the States. But the point is, you're still moving to a very different area, even if it is part of, you know, North America. I'm really terrible with that shit. I'm so sorry. I sound like an uneducated buffoon, but I just don't remember. Geography was a little hazy for me in school. Anyway, this is having options. You're like, well, what do I want to do? If I do have options, what life do I want to live? What beliefs do I want to keep? What inner world do I, excuse me, what inner world do I want to cultivate here? My goodness, I have all these options. So the Nine of Swords can be someone who is, I'm going to say, unnecessarily stressed. Maybe they're fearing that they're going to make the wrong decision. So, again, to take this to a more um, lateral storyline, this could be someone who has some sort of decision to make. They're afraid they're going to make the wrong decision. Clarifying that Nine of Swords with the Five of Swords, yeah, there's a lot of inner conflict, and there's that crow squawking doubt into this person's ear. You're not going to make the right choice. You're going to open the wrong door, go down the wrong hallway, and you're going to mess it all up. The Two of Swords is more about, um, and maybe I should clarify, because of the way these cards are coming out, this card actually is more like each one of these chalices is him picturing or fantasizing, right, about a life he could have. This version of my life or this version of my life, what plot points do you want to solidify into your life? Do you want to be a parent? Do you want to live in the States? Do you want to have a full-time 9 to 5 type job, or do you want to be a freelancer? Like, these are big questions, and you're looking at your life in each one of these kind of realms to see what you want to do. You're trying to gain perspective and flow into, each portal and see what you like, what you don't like. I'm seeing Back to the Future 2 when he goes to like meet himself and Jennifer and the kids, and Doc is like, there's something wrong with your kids, and he has to like go tend to his children and what they've become in the world as it is at that time. So fantasizing about each option, feeling overwhelmed, having doubt about making the right decision. The Two of Swords, I'm actually going to look up this specific definition because there are so many swords. I want to differentiate each sword message. Okay, stalemate, crossroads, making a difficult choice, opposing ideas or opinions, choosing the best route of action, memory, or thought. So this is, again, just that process of like the push-pull of how do I make this decision well? I don't know. You want to make the prosperous choice. This beautiful card is always, to me, one of the sexiest cards in the tarot because she is fertile. She is beautiful. She is at the top of her game. She has all four queens in one. And as a situation, this is a luscious, prosperous life that does not require a whole lot of, when I say effort, you've already put the effort in. You've managed your frequency and you're living a life that is a softer coasting lifestyle. But that didn't come without work to get to this point where you're even here. And that's, I think, what you're navigating through here. You're navigating through all of the options to see what is going to lead you to your highest life. Okay? And to do that, you are navigating through a lot of different options because let me tell you, when you're navigating to your highest timeline, you might have to jump through multiple layers of different lives that you could lead to get here. So you have to give up like 6 or 7 options to get here. To get here. Okay? And again, I clarified the Seven of Cups with this Two of Pentacles. It's the hemming and the hawing, the this or the that, and this Three of Swords. So someone is really, really conflicted over the options and what they want to create their life to be. This is maybe someone who knows that we are conscious, creative beings and that we are making choices to lead us to our lives. Each decision we make puts us in a position to live a different life. Being with different people makes wildly different things of your life. Maybe you marry a professional baseball player And your life is very, very different than if you marry an accountant. And I'm not trying to make this like that an accountant is bad. I'm just saying, someone who works locally and comes home every night versus someone who is off traveling for work or has some sort of notoriety or a little bit of fame associated with their career. That's a big choice too. What job do you take? Do you have children? Do you excuse me? Do you live in the States or do you travel and live somewhere else? This keeps coming up. So I really feel like there are people here who really want to move out of the States. And you're very nervous about it because my throat keeps like kind of coming to this point, and that doesn't normally happen for me. So let's come into this deeper. Okay, alignment. Let's clarify. Woo, 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 woo. Shadow, reincarnation. Okay. I am most assuredly going to read these because I feel like they are going to help us to wrap up this message. Okay, and these are not in alphabetical order. Drive me bananas. All right, reincarnation. The soul is pure consciousness, an energy that is eternal. The physical body itself dies. However, the soul chooses to incarnate into a physical new form to embrace change and experience new opportunities. You are a wise soul. Good job, you, who has lived many lives. Often we have experiences where we feel we have ventured somewhere before our time, where we feel held an occupation that differs to the one we are currently experiencing. This is because we are remembering an aspect of a past life that our soul once experienced. Sometimes you have a longing to visit somewhere sacred or special to your heart. This is because it has held significant meaning to your soul in a previous life. It is important to try and honor this calling to visit the places and experiences for which your soul yearns. Okay, very powerful. I went to Australia for 2 weeks by myself in 2016 because I felt absolutely called to go on a whim. And I went by myself, and it was a beautiful experience. I had many what people would call God moments. If you don't like the word God, just use source energy. I had many of those moments where I was just filled to the brim with that universal loving consciousness, and I was overwhelmed, absolutely overwhelmed. My nose is so itchy all of a sudden, so overwhelmed with love, divine love, to the point where at one point I was driving up to the Byron Bay Lighthouse and I was crying and I was like having this beautiful moment with source energy, and yet this other voice inside me was like, Jordan, keep your eyes on the road, don't drive off the cliff, because you were literally like driving up a spiral stone mountain to get to the top. So it was very important that I just keep my practical head on my shoulders, but I was like snotting and crying and like having this beautiful moment with source energy. I was absolutely, utterly called to Australia, and it felt so deeply memorable within the cells of my body. Being there felt good. Being there felt like I was home. Being there felt like I was experiencing and seeing geography that I had searched for in the States that I couldn't find. And I'm not kidding. Now I have moved to the Pacific Northwest. I'm in Washington State, and I can honestly tell you that I feel the same way. I feel like I have lived here before, or that I was destined to live here. And then I feel that because past, present, future all happen simultaneously, but it feels very right to be here. It felt very right to be in Australia. So if you feel called, let's just say you're someone who lives in the States and you feel called to another country, go visit. See if maybe you are being called to move there. Maybe there is unresolved issues from another life that you're being called to move there to live or enjoy. Maybe you had a really hard time when you were there, your last life, and they want to say move there and enjoy the rest of your life now. Because I think, again, this group of people, we've done a lot of bulk loading of our pain and misery on the front end of our life. And the last, we'll call it the last half of our life, um, these are going to be softer chapters because the world is coming into proper alignment for soul stars, light seers, light soul beings, whatever you want to call them. There's a bajillion names. These souls are coming into better alignment because the planet is raising her actual vibrational frequency, and that changes the game for everybody. So we're coming into a time where I think the world will indeed get softer. There's still a lot of chaos, don't get me wrong, but you might be called to go somewhere that just feels right because you're destined to enjoy your life there for the rest of particular life, this particular 100 years that you have on this marble. Okay, I want to go into shadow because this feels this feels very important. It just really reads like someone who might want to move abroad. Okay, in Greek, let's show you the card. In Greek mythology, Pluto rules the underworld, a strong representation of the subconscious and shadow self. A spotlight is illuminating your soul, allowing you to distinctly see every aspect, the light and dark, good and bad, positive and negative. This can feel confronting and dense as you peel back the hidden layers to reveal the truth. Habits, beliefs, and patterns and emotions will be brought to the surface for you to address. The shadow is nothing to fear, for the immense growth and transformation will bring complete embodiment, leaving you with greater awareness and compassion for yourself and others. In order to embrace the light, you must first acknowledge the dark. Okay, so alignment here speaks to balancing the shadow self, and maybe you can do that through going to a physical place that is calling you to go there. I am all about location healing. There are certain locations on this planet that, based on you and your life up till now, this moment, can heal you. There are other locations that will bring out the conflict in you. Okay? That has to do with a lot of things. It has to do with your past lives, but it also has to do with the vibrational frequency of the land, of that place. Each country has its own vibrational frequency. Each state has its own vibrational frequency. And if you often feel sick where you live, it very well may be that the land itself holds the memory of a lot of trauma that happened there, and you're very in tune with that, and it was making you sick, and so to move would be necessary for you, and it's going to completely change your world because you will gain that different perspective. Okay, someone had a really beautiful full explanation of this about a seed. If a seed is not growing properly, let's just say you planted it, you put the proper amount of soil on top, you've watered it, you've waited, but for whatever reason, it's not blossoming, it's not growing. You're not going to say, you're stupid. What's wrong with you, you stupid seed? You're going to start to look, well, am I watering it the appropriate amount? Was I supposed to put fertilizer in this soil? Is it getting the right amount of light? Or does it need to be in the shade? I don't know. I'm going to check and change the conditions that this plant is in so that it can thrive. We are the plant. Okay, so sometimes changing your location is necessary. I say this as someone who has relocated across the country a couple months ago. I feel so much better being here. My energy has lifted, even from where I was originally when I moved to where I'm at now. I feel so much better. I'm in vibrational frequency and alignment with um, the actual location where I live, the land on which I live, the property on which I live. I hum so happily being here. I'm just like, I'm here, I'm in it, and the land and the soil and the smell and the trees and the flowers, everything is already matched to me, and I cannot tell you how that's happened. I mean, sincerely, it's confusing to even me. So, this is a beautiful realization that you may need to change your circumstance, and you may need to make, a difficult choice to move to a different location that really speaks to you, that brings you to that highest timeline. the one where your body and your nervous system aren't fighting to just exist, where you are emotionally free and abundant. So I think I'm going to wrap this up here because this is feeling very complete and very beautiful. Um, I am going to put all of the details for the decks in the description box. You can book a private reading with me if you would like. hello@jordanlee.com. And yeah, until next time, I hope you guys have a beautiful day. I hope this message resonated with whoever it was meant for.